The microphone, you're going to put yours on.
Oh, I thought you were going to do it.
I'm not dressing you.
It gets to that rev limiter quick. We're doing some miles an hour.
I'm late for work and my fuel light has just come on, so I'm going to be even later for work.
Welcome everyone to the very first AutoPod podcast. My name is Paul from the YouTube channels Live to Drive and Live for Travel, and I like to talk. This is my good friend Ak from the YouTube channels Ak Rides and Middle-Aged
Dad.
Gaming,
Yep.
who ends up having to listen to this poor brumming. So, welcome everyone.
Sorry, did you say listen? I best turn my hearing aids on then.
So, very relaxed, informal atmosphere, as I'm sure you can see. And we're going to really just cover probably, one subject per podcast rather than...
Yeah, I think so. Because ultimately, even if the subject arguably is, a one line or a couple of lines, we
can milk it for all it's worth.
Well, no, you can.
Oh, you're so kind to me. But he's absolutely right, everyone. If you haven't seen either of our channels before, you'll...
You don't want to either.
Well, there'll be links at the end of the channel if they want to.
Yeah.
So we're going to crack on. And today, because it's the first one, we wanted to talk about, will any of the modern fodder that's on our roads, now bearing in mind my other channel is a car channel, Axe is a bike channel, therefore I bring it more from a car driver's perspective. Axe is going to bring his sort of riding perspective. Are there any cars or motorbikes currently now, or relatively modern, that we think might be future classics? So who's going to kick off on this one? Ack.
There are some specific models which I get to, but I'll let you get to yours first.
The first thing I want to say is, well, in the classic car world that I live in, I always say to people when I'm at shows that to me, because there's always an argument, what car is a classic, what isn't? Oh, that's too new to be a classic, that isn't. Our background's gone off already. Come on, get it sorted. Thank you, sir. For me, I always say to people, if it hasn't got an OBD port, it's a classic.
Well,
because
what year did they come in then?
I reckon that was mid-90s, early 90s.
It was arguably the worst thing they ever happened to automobiles, or automobile theft anyway.
And then if you look at how it is now, of course, it's just all
yeah.
computerised. But we're now, of course, for this subject, we're talking about modern stuff, so they're all going to have OBD ports, of course. So I think for me, the stumbling block is all the new safety systems, because all the new safety systems are, okay, trying to make driving safer, which in a way is good, keeps us alive. But by the same token, they're very annoying. So we're talking about safety systems like lane departure warning, autonomous braking.
Right, okay.
Autonomous braking is another one. Now, obviously, we're living in a world now where I guess legislation is forcing all the manufacturers to fit these systems. The problem I have is, although it is starting to change, and I think it's because the manufacturers are hearing the static from us car buyers, they're having to fit these systems. And normally, those systems always reset to back on again when you turn the car on.
Yeah.
So you ultimately spend 2 minutes
Fanning around.
pressing buttons, trying to switch it all off. Anyway, the manufacturers now have started, I'm aware of some, I can't think of a specific at the minute, where they're making it a sort of one button press to knock them off.
Turn everything off. Oh, okay, superb.
So although it's defaulting back to on, because I guess the legislation says it. So anyway, so for me, that excludes pretty much all of those vehicles. So I reckon 2017, 2018, maybe, is probably the newest I would go. And the first one that I have on my pre-prepared list, everyone, which probably has got some of those safety features, so I just have to make sure I turn them off every time, is the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, or as Clarkson called it, the Quadrifoglio.
That's the one with the Ferrari engine, isn't it?
It's the one with the alleged Ferrari engine, because everything about it is all but a Ferrari engine, cut down to size.
I've seen that one, isn't that? Yeah.
And that was Clarkson.
Yeah.
What a car.
Wow.
What a sound.
Yeah.
And although dependent on budget, they are still quite expensive. They're no longer £60,000. second hand, you can pick them up for 20-odd thousand pounds. So that's a lot of car for 20-odd thousand. Obviously, they'll done a lot of miles, but it's 20-odd thousand pounds. So for me, that's a no-brainer. Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio will be a future classic. Before I do the next one, why don't you do one of your first ones on bikes?
Motorcycle that came out in 1985.
Okay, that's a while
They
ago.
stopped it at some point last year. I don't know exactly when.
So a good production
Suzuki
run. Yeah.
came out as a GSXR 1100
Okay.
R. Became the GSXR 1000 in, was it the mid 90s, early 2000s, something like that. But anyway, yeah, it's got a massive lineage, and it's obviously it's one of many sports bikes by all the major manufacturers: Kawasaki, Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, blah 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 blah. But this one has always been known to be a bit raw, a bit edgy compared to the others.
Okay.
One of the others, for example, Honda and the Fireblade, arguably later in the iterations became. So it was just considered to be not very ungentlemanly if you compare it to some of the other marques, specifically some of the later generation Hondas and Yamahas, like the R1s and the Fireblades, that were considered, don't get me wrong, to be an amazing motorcycle, but just a bit too clinical, a bit too clean, almost a bit too staid and boring.
Okay.
But the Suzuki was always a bit more
On the edge.
Yeah, and it had that reputation. That's why, for me, out of all the sports bike, that's the one that gets that. The kind of will become a future classic. And the early ones already are.
And hence the prices of those will only go up.
No, absolutely, yeah.
My second one then, I don't know, almost any BMW with the bigger engine, there's a 240i. Again,
2 Series Beamer.
Yeah, 240i. And the amount of power, it's something like 340 PS or something like that. Rear wheel drive.
Hang on. Did you say M as in M Sport? M2,
I think it is, but
M2 or whatever.
basically anything
right,
that says
M.
anything that says 235 or 240 on the back.
Fine.
It's going to be a beast of a car. And again, because we're not talking brand new anymore, and they might be like 5 years old or something like that.
But it's still
they're
relatively.
Depending on your price point again, of course, they're like low
Hang on.
20 grand.
I thought you were discounting cars with OBD ports.
No, I said that in the classic car world, the current classics, I would say,
The ones without
whereas
the
we're
OBDs.
talking future
Right,
classics,
fine.
of course,
No, that
aren't
makes
we?
sense.
So, oh yeah, there's definitely an OBD port and probably multiple computers. But basically, although a lot of these cars you typically see on police interceptors being chased by police cars that are also BMWs with the 335 engine, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Next one for me. It's another Suzuki. And
Are you a bit of a Suzuki fanboy?
well, I've owned bikes from all the marques, all the major Japanese marques anyway.
Remind this car person what all the Japanese marques are.
Well, there's a few, but the big four are Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Suzuki.
Yeah, okay.
I've never owned a Suzuki.
No.
I've ridden lots of Suzukis, but I've never owned one. I've always wanted to own one. And this one, I have never ridden. Basically, it's a Hayabusa.
Yeah, okay.
Suzuki GSX 1300R. But how would I describe a Suzuki Hayabusa to those car people? It's not a sports bike. It's not particularly light. I would liken it more to, say, a Bentley GT Continental. It's still extraordinarily quick.
Yeah.
But it does it in utter comfort and with ease. Whereas if you're in your Renault Clio, your ex-Renault Clio,
Because I've owned two and I've sold two.
and you want to have some fun, you've got to make it work. You have to work it to make it work. Whereas if you're in a Bentley GT Continental, you can go just as quick, but it's completely effortless,
Yeah,
with
it's a waft.
arguably less effort on your part to do it. So that's really what a Hayabusa is. It's kind of like the gentleman's express. It's rapid as you know what. Big, fast, heavy, comfortable. Oh, yes, please.
We're going to do a podcast, aren't we, about what we would like to have.
We will.
Money, no object. So I think we'll probably save that bit for that. But I'm looking forward to that one, because when you're spending somebody else's money, it's easy to.
Oh, God, it is, yeah.
It's easy to dream.
Does that mean I'm spending your money to buy my bikes?
You won't be buying many bikes if you're using my money, but, you know.
Well, just sell your car collection.
Do you know, I think it was you, Ak, that said to me famously a couple of years ago.
That's it. Yes.
Say it for the viewers.
Assuming it's the right one, because I say many things to you.
Yeah, nearly all negative, but go on.
Why don't you sell all of your cars and buy yourself a decent bike?
That's the one.
Was that the
no,
one?
You didn't
Yeah.
you didn't say. No, if you delete the word bike out of it, you basically said, why don't you sell all your cars? Just buy a decent one.
Superb.
I like all my cars.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to end my one with something extremely basic. If you think we've been talking about Alfa Romeos and BMWs, a car that I love and should become easily a future classic, providing two things. Number one, obviously, low ownership. So obviously 1 or 2 owners maximum. Excellent condition. Preferably low miles, so no more than, say, 4-digit mileage, a bit like the Fiesta that I own. That's under 10,000 miles, can't believe it. Ford KA, but an early example of the Ford KA. Now, I call it a KA.
Hang on. Ford KA is you think it's going to be the classic?
It will be a classic.
Okay.
You see, this is where my biker friend here probably doesn't frequent many classic car shows.
No.
And I understand
I don't think
that.
I've ever been to a classic car show.
So, find me an early, so I think that would be around a P reg, in red, with unpainted grey bumpers, proper poverty spec. So if I remember rightly, the KA, you had like the KA, then you had the KA2, and you had the KA3,
Oh, is this like models?
the grey.
Yeah, fine.
I remember Clarkson's original review of it, which I found quite funny. And he did suggest that it's a good job they didn't do an SI version, otherwise it'd be called a Carsley. So I think, what I think of classics today, I've got Honda Integra Type R, Accord Type R, Civic Type R, anything that says Type R. I've got on here Toyota MR2s, and I don't care if it's the early wedge shape or the later ones.
No, the wedge shapes are much better looking.
Yeah, but it's still a mid-engine. I'd love one. Volvo 850R or T5R, which of course came before it.
Hang on, the 850 T5, was that like the big massive estate version that they
That
used
everyone
to have?
remembers in the UK for the British Touring
Cars back in the
Championships.
90s, yeah.
Everybody else,
I tell you what, that was so funny.
everybody else in the paddocks must have seen that turn up and gone, what on earth are Volvo doing? I think they only raced the estates for the first season, and then they went to the saloons from the second season. Oh, what shall I end with? I've got a list here. You see, I could cheat. Anything that says Renault Sport works for me. So that could be a Megane. It could be the one with the big bum at the back.
Or
that had
the early
that
Renault
had the
5
famous
turbos.
advert of shaking the ass and all that kind of
Was that the
stuff.
early Renault 5 turbo?
Renault 5 GT Turbo,
Yes, I remember
which
that.
I think was only a 1400 engine, but it was turbocharged. And it was
going to be
I
ridiculous.
think you just went from turbo lag to lots of power.
Yeah.
So I would say anything with Renault Sport, and I guess the last one, because I'm kind of cheating and picking loads.
Another Renault?
No, I've just sort of
Shocker.
said Renault Sport, so I've just said
yeah.
basically anything
Right.
that's produced by Renault Sport. I'm obviously a bit of a Renault Sport fanboy, a bit like you're a
Really?
Suzuki fanboy. Anything Skoda VRS, kind of, whether it be the Fabia, whether it be the Octavia.
Fabia. Because the Fabia...
Well, the original, that you could buy a diesel Fabia at VRS.
Yes, I'm
couldn't you?
thinking about the 1.9 TDI VRS, the Fabia.
Yeah. For me, those are classics. I rest my case on that one, Your Honour.
Fine.
Is there another bike you're going to give
Yeah,
us a
yeah.
classic?
There's one bike for me. It's the entire series. We're currently on generation 4. It originally came out in 2015-16, and it was by KTM,
Yeah, okay.
who I do hope sort their financial woes out and end up staying with us.
Because at the time of filming, they're obviously not in a good place.
No, unfortunately not. And it was their completely new model at the time. I think it was a 1050, and it was called the Super Duke. Twin cylinder, 160 brake horsepower, I think. But the point is,
How much again?
160 brake.
On a bike.
And because it's a twin cylinder, all the power is there instantly in any gear. And because the power delivery was so aggressive.
So can I use my driving phrase now of you literally are hanging on to that one?
Yes. It gained a massive reputation as just being a hooligan's bike.
Okay.
We're currently in generation 4. Generation 1 was a 1050, then 2017 it was generation 2. It went up to 1290, sorry, it was 1090 or 1190, 1290. And now the power is just, I mean, I rode generation 2, which is 2017 model, which had 175 brake horsepower. And I'm not kidding you, it was just...
You're hanging on.
Somebody told me that they rode it on a dual carriageway above the national speed limit and just cracked it open in top gear, and it just Roadrunner. Looney Tunes,
I
mate.
had 220 horses
Looney
in a Clio
Tunes.
that weighs 1250 kilos. That bike wet is going to weigh...
Well, that particular bike, I don't know, but it'll weigh wet under 200 kilos.
Yeah, so even by my simple Birmingham maths, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, extraordinary, extraordinary, and that will definitely be a Golden Classic, purely because even now, with every generation and more rider aids, obviously being a twin, it's going to be quite violent and not particularly smooth, as it were. KTM have done a fantastic job of making it smoother to ride.
Okay.
If you can imagine, because basically it's two big bangs,
Better
isn't it?
rideability.
Better rideability.
Because I have been to bike shows with you, Ak.
Yeah.
I'm sure all manufacturers try to have a distinctive look, but the KTMs have a distinctive look, don't they? You can.
Well, they do now.
Oh, right. They didn't
from
do in
the
the
end
early
of
days.
2023, early 24, or maybe mid 2023. They all went to LED lighting, obviously, a few years ago. They had a particular design, and it stayed that way for a couple of years. But this year, they've kind of really done something funky with the styling to the point of whereby you either love it, like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah,
but I kind of liken it to like the Predator. You know, when the Predator opens his mouth and he kind of goes, rah, like that.
That's an image.
That's kind of what they've done with the headlight on this bike.
Which
and
is
it's
why
like
it's a bit Marmite. That's our first podcast, everyone.
Wow.
If we've not completely sent you to sleep, then well done for staying to the end of the video. Thank you very much for staying to the end of the video. We're going to be filming quite a few of these, and we're just going to be nattering on about stuff. And we welcome any suggestions, don't we, from people that may want us
any
to
suggestions,
discuss
any
stuff.
topics people might find interesting for us to talk about, or even if you've got any questions for us about anything we've talked about or anything you think we should be talking about.
Let us know
or
in the comments below.
you just want to insult us for being old grumpy old men. Well, that's right, for Paul for being an old grumpy old man.
And on that note, thank you very much for watching. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
And we haven't ripped that off from anybody.
Absolutely not.
See you later, folks.